death for killing Avis Banks, who was 5 months pregnant. Listen in as the judge read the sentence.
All right, as to count one, the verdict or the sentence is, we, the jury, find that the defendant should be sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. As to count two, the sentence is, we, the jury, find the defendant should be sentenced to life imprisonment without parole.
16 WAPT's Catherine Kite got reaction outside the courtroom after Hughes learned her fate.
One, the verdict or the sentence is, we, the jury, find that the defendant should be sentenced to life imprisonment without parole.
After hearing her sentence, Carla Hughes waved and said bye to her family and friends while deputies led her out of the courtroom.
Here is the tragic story of Avis Banks, a 27-year-old Mississippi resident who found herself in a love triangle that claimed her life on the 29th of November, 2006. Not only was she murdered senselessly, Avis was 5 months pregnant during the incident, and the killer made sure the innocent fetus would never make it out alive. It turns out the person behind her death was Carla Hughes, a 25-year-old lady from the same town. Carla killed her out of desperation to keep Alvis's fiancé to herself. But how? First, let's head to Jackson, Mississippi, a predominantly black town where the elegant Carla Hughes seeks a second chance at love after the crash of her previous relationship, a collision that led her to the journey of single motherhood. Carla Hughes was born on June 12, 1981. Her uncle and aunt adopted her at the tender age of 6 weeks. Carla enjoyed riding on horseback, beauty pageantry, and reading in her leisure time. In the year 2000, she was the definition of beauty with brains. She went on to earn a bachelor's degree from the University of Southern Mississippi and her master's degree in education from Belhaven College. A real career woman, she was prudently pursuing her doctorate in education when the sad tragedy that would plunge her life struck. All because of a protracted love life. In 2004, Carla had a brief stint with the supposed man of her dreams who abandoned her at the altar on their wedding day. The runaway groom claimed to be suffering from pre-wedding jitters, leaving the shattered bride in shock. Not only was she frustrated, Carla had been 2 months pregnant at the time. She had no choice but to move on, giving birth to a bouncing baby boy 7 months later, while still trying to fix the already shattered pieces of her life. The universe was kind enough to send her another Prince Charming in the person of Keon Pittman, a teacher and basketball coach at Chastain High, the same school Carla worked as an art teacher. Unknown to her, a shocking twist lay ahead, one that would entwine her life in a deadly love triangle with another woman, Avis Banks. Avis was a Mississippi native born on August 18, 1979, who was 27 years old at the time of the incident. Though she wasn't born into a very buoyant family, she was surrounded by love, the kind of family that cared so much about each other. Little Avis attended Warren Central High School and was among the graduating class of 1997.
She was a really beautiful girl. She had long, beautiful hair that she never thought about cutting.
She never got in trouble, never got a spanking, nothing. Interacting with her cousins, she would always be the teacher and we sit down and be the student.
She always wanted to work with children. So she made it up in her mind after she graduated from high school that she was gonna go on to college and get her degree in child development, which she did.
It was a huge accomplishment for Avis to graduate from college. My grandmother was extremely proud because she always wanted to go to college but never got the opportunity. So she was telling everyone at church about how her granddaughter had just graduated from college.
My dad was very, very proud. It was one of her many accomplishments. It made me want to follow in her footsteps.
After college, Avis went into a relationship with a handsome young man she had met, but not without her father's approval and support. The relationship grew so intense, she moved to Jackson, Mississippi, with her love interest after he got a job as a teacher and basketball coach at Chastain Middle School. This handsome young teacher was none other than the same Keon Pittman. Keon was a 31-year-old teacher with a friendly and confident demeanor. His qualities caught the attention of the new cheerleading coach and language arts teacher, Carla Hughes. Carla Hughes fell in love with Keon Pittman in an instant, and their relationship is recorded as the worst-kept secret in Chastain Middle School. Why, though? Carla often had love notes passed to him by some of her students. She wanted to make it clear to everyone that Keon belonged to her and her alone. They had once snuck out just to have a romantic getaway. But the problem was, while Carla was seriously in love, Keon wasn't. Keon was not just in a serious relationship with another woman. He was engaged to that same woman, Avis Banks. The shocking part was that this woman was also pregnant with Keon's child. Carla was aware of this, but still wanted Keon all to herself. She reflected on the fact that the same thing happened to her some years ago, and made a decision not to go down that path a second time. Carla was certain beyond reasonable doubt that Keon was going to leave his pregnant fiancé for her, but all her hopes came crashing down when Keon made it clear that he would never leave Avis for anyone, not even her. He also made it clear he never felt anything deep for Carla Hughes. He just wanted to have fun. Nothing more, nothing less. Carla took that revelation so personally that she started stalking Keon and his fiancé. Her obsession grew to the point she threatened to reveal Keon's secret affair with herself to Avis Banks. So when the couple planned a trip to see Avis's family, Carla booked a hotel not far from the lady's family residence. Keon was always on his phone during this period, either outside or far away from people within audible range. Avis's family started suspecting Keon and his unusual behaviors. Avis, too, wasn't oblivious to all that was happening, but she refused to raise any alarms. Keon was well aware that Avis was not planning to leave him, which is why he felt confident enough to cheat without fear of getting caught. After getting entangled in all these, Carla thought she was ready to eliminate everything in her path, including Avis Banks. On November 28, 2006, 4 days after the visit and barely 2 months before their wedding, Avis Banks was found dead in a home she shared with the father of her unborn child. Keon had just returned from a basketball game to find his 5-month pregnant fiancée murdered in their garage. He immediately panicked and headed to his neighbor's house to contact 911. The murder was said to have taken place somewhere between 5:50 p.m. and 6 p.m. What was also noted was that the dispatch alarm went off at 8:45 p.m., nearly 3 hours later. So, what happened within that time? The scene of the murder was unusually staged to fit into that of a robbery scene, but nothing was missing. The house was attacked and ransacked. A piece of evidence found at the crime scene was a bloody shoe print. Initially, investigators felt that she had been sexually assaulted, but the autopsy report said otherwise.
This case from the courtroom, she's live now. Catherine, tell us what was going on during Pittman's testimony.
Well, Brad and Stephanie, the jury took in every word and kept their eyes glued to Carla Hughes and Keon Pittman while Keon told about their 4-month love affair. Carla showed no facial expression, but sometimes whispered to her attorney and took notes while Keon talked about their love affair. Keon Pittman testified he and Carla Hughes met at Chastain Middle School in August 2006, just 1 month after he and his fiancée Avis Banks found out they were expecting a baby. Keon says his and Carla's relationship quickly turned romantic. He says it all started when he went to Carla's apartment.
The investigators had one primary suspect, Keon himself. It was noted that Keon would always enter the house through the front door, but all of a sudden, he decided to enter through the garage door on that very day. Secondly, he chose to use his neighbor's phone to contact 911 instead of his own.
She said he ran up to her, hugged her, kissed her on the lips. After that, he ran inside to see if he could find anybody. But the question and the statement that has everybody here at the courthouse talking, he says he didn't call 911 on his cell phone. He says he ran next door and used the neighbor's phone to call 911. He says his phone is a nationwide phone and can't make local calls.
After the 2006 murder, Carla Hughes sat down with police detectives. She wasn't under arrest and talked to them for an hour and a half, and they taped it. Jurors in the Hughes trial saw that tape today. Hughes told police she and Keon Pittman were just friends and that she never told him to leave his fiancée, Avis Banks. Also today, a key witness took the stand and testified Pittman was at a basketball practice at the time of the murder.
Did you receive a call from Keon Pittman?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall what the nature of that conversation was?
To tell me that he found Avis dead.
Okay. What did y'all talk about? What was he talking about?
As far as I remember, that was all he said.
Could you tell what kind of emotional and mental state he was in, or how did he seem to you?
Normal.
Hughes is charged with killing Avis Banks and her unborn child. If convicted, Hughes could get the death penalty.
Very suspicious. The only thing that exonerated him from the suspect list was the fact that he had an alibi, having attended a basketball game with few witnesses who could testify that he was present at the game. Still, that didn't prove he didn't have a hand in Avis Banks' murder.
One day in August, he says they had sex and referred to their 4-month affair as a sexual adventure. Meanwhile, Avis Banks' family filled the courtroom, many times cringing and gasping at the details of the affair. At one point during the testimony, he admitted to playing a role in Avis's death.
Mr. Pittman, did you kill Avis Banks?
No.
Do you feel any responsibility for her death?
Yes.
Tell me how.
If I would have stayed faithful to who I was with, finding, thinking poorly, making bad choices, or made a bad choice to sleep around and flirt with other women, this chain of events would have never taken place.
And Keon Pittman also testified about the night he came home to Avis in his house and found that she had been murdered. He said he opened up the garage door and saw her body laying there in the garage. He said he ran up to her, hugged her, kissed her on the lips. After that, he ran inside to see if he could find anybody. But the question and the statement that has everybody here at the courthouse talking, he says he didn't call 911 on his cell phone. He says he ran next door and used the neighbor's phone to call 911. He says his phone is a nationwide phone and can't make local calls. We're live at the Madison County.
The autopsy report revealed that she was shot twice in the leg, twice in the chest, and once in the head. It also revealed that Avis Banks had been stabbed 3 times. After Keon was cleared from the suspect list, investigators decided to pay Chastain Middle School a little visit. Keon's co-workers expressed their condolences to him concerning the news of his fiancé's murder. His co-workers attested to the fact that Keon was a playboy and that he had a secret relationship with the language arts teacher, Carla Hughes. Upon hearing this, the investigators decided to head to Carla's office. Carla staged a wonderful performance for the investigators, or so she thought. She expressed her sorrow towards the devastating news and denied ever having a romantic involvement with Keon Pittman. Little did she know that the cat was already out of the bag. Everything turned on her when the investigators decided to search Carla's house, making a shocking discovery of a shoe with the exact blood print of Avis Banks. Not only did the cops make this discovery, her defensive facade eagerly crumbled when Patrick Nash, Carla's cousin, came to the police after watching the news of the murder on TV. Patrick had a feeling that there was some kind of connection between the gun that Carla borrowed and the murdered woman. He stated that just a few days before Avis's murder, Carla came to borrow a .38 revolver from him and a knife, claiming that it was for protection. When she returned it on December 1, 2006, there were no bullets in the gun even though it was fully loaded when he gave it to her. It was later revealed that the gun Carla borrowed from Patrick was indeed the murder weapon. Banks was 5 months pregnant and her wedding was just 2 months away. As her trial began in October 2009, Carla's family tried their best to back her up, to no avail. Her lawyer also tried pinning the murder on Keon Pittman, but the mountain of evidence placed against Carla was too huge to sidestep. The shoe with Avis's blood print and the .38 revolver, matching the handprints on the murder weapon. It took the jury 8 hours to deliberate and give a verdict.
Finds that they are in the one of the forms allowed by the instructions. If the defendant would please rise. Relative to count 1, the verdict is, we, the jury, find the defendant, Carla Hughes, guilty of capital murder as charged in count 1 of the indictment. Relative to count 2, the verdict is, we, the jury, find the defendant, Carla Hughes, guilty of capital murder as charged in count 2 of the indictment. Mr. Walls, would you like the jury polled?
Sure.
All right. Y'all may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, in any case where a jury is reached, it is customary for the judge to poll the jury to see if the verdict is a unanimous verdict. And that is done by looking at each member of the jury and asking them whether or not the verdict that was reached was their verdict. And the way I deal with that is I deal with count 1 first, and I will look
At long last, on October 13th, 2009, Carla Ann Hughes was convicted and found guilty of 2 counts of murder. She was almost sentenced to death, but her dad intervened just in time to make a special plea.
As the judge read the sentence.
All right, as to count 1, the verdict or the sentence is, we, the jury, find that the defendant should be sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. As to count 2, the sentence is, we, the jury, find the defendant should be sentenced to life imprisonment without parole.
16 WAPT's Catherine Kai got reaction outside the courtroom after Hughes learned her fate.
1, the verdict or the sentence is, we, the jury, find that the defendant should be sentenced to life imprisonment without parole.
After hearing her sentence, Carla Hughes waved and said bye to her family and friends while deputies led her out of the courtroom. Avis Banks and Carla Hughes' fathers hugged each other. What did you tell them?
We both lost, I'm sorry. I know that, they weren't that type of people. They didn't raise Carla like that. And I'm just sorry, and we just embraced each other.
Wednesday morning, Carla Hughes' father pleaded with the jury to save his only child's life.
The thing to you is, I'm not asking you, I'm pleading with you to spare my daughter's life.
After just 30 minutes of deliberations, the jury sentenced Carla Hughes to life in prison without parole. Both prosecutors and defense attorneys say there's a sense of relief the trial is over.
But we're just glad that the Banks family are now able to bring some closure to this.
We did, I don't think we changed anything that we did unless Ms. Hughes decided she wanted to change something, and she would have to tell us that.
Carla Hughes is headed to the Rankin County Detention Center. That's where she'll spend the rest of her life. Her 5-year-old son is now in the custody of her parents. Reporting from the Madison County Courthouse, Catherine testified he and Carla Hughes met at Chastain Middle School in August 2006, just 1 month after he and his fiancée, Avis Banks, found out they were expecting a baby. Keon says his and Carla's relationship quickly turned romantic. He says it all started when he went to Carla's apartment one day in August. He says they had sex and referred to their 4-month affair as a sexual adventure. Meanwhile, Avis Banks' family filled the courtroom, many times cringing and gasping at the details of the affair. At one point during the testimony, he admitted to playing a role in Avis's death.
Mr. Pittman, did you kill Avis Banks?
No.
Do you feel any responsibility for her death?
Yes.
Tell me how.
If I would have stayed faithful to who I was with, finding, thinking poorly, making bad choices, or made a bad choice to sleep around and flirt with other women, this chain of events would have never taken place.
Finds that they are in the one of the forms allowed by the instructions. If the defendant would please rise. Relative to count 1, the verdict is, we, the jury, find the defendant, Carla Hughes, guilty of capital murder as charged in count 1 of the indictment. Relative to count 2, the verdict is, we, the jury, find the defendant, Carla Hughes, guilty of capital murder as charged in count 2 of the...
She was sentenced to life imprisonment instead, and on August 30th, 2010, a Madison County judge denied Carla Hughes's request for a new trial. Still, on her case, a Mississippi Supreme Court reaffirmed the earlier judgment by the Madison County Court on June 21, 2012, meaning Carla has no chance whatsoever for parole.